Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee. Today I'm going to do another dehydrating video for you guys, and this video is going to be on dehydrating onions. This is going to be the sister video for my dehydrating peppers video that I did a little while back. I'm going to talk to you guys real quick here about kind of selecting the onions that I use, how I slice them, how I store them, and I'm going to make this point very, very clear when I first start this. So you guys know this before. If you only watch this video for just a minute or so, you at least get this information out of it. You do not want to dehydrate onions inside your house. You absolutely do not want to do that. They will absolutely fumigate you out of the house. They will have the most powerful odor for about 5 hours when they're first starting to dehydrate, and it's literally like tear gas. So you don't want to be anywhere around that when it's dehydrating. You want to dehydrate either outside or like I'm doing here in an outbuilding where there isn't going to be anybody kind of hanging out in it. That is the most important thing when it comes to dehydrating onions. It is a smelly process for a while. After they start to dry down, though, that smell dissipates and it's not so bad. But it's best if you do it in an outbuilding or you do it outside entirely. I'm going to be using onions that I got up at the local fruit stand today, just pretty much like I did the peppers. Store-bought onions are actually a really good candidate to dehydrate, and the reason for that is usually store-bought onions have crappy skins, like this guy right here. This is one of the ones I got up at the fruit stand, and you can see there isn't much of a skin on this guy. It's just real paper thin. You can see the onion right through the skin. There's no top on it. These guys aren't going to keep. If you don't have a real hard, tight skin on your onions, they're not going to keep long-term, like if you want to braid them or something. Or if you grow onions like I do, you have some guys that look like this. They're kind of small. They're not very large. They don't have enough of a top where you can braid them on. These small little onions like this, these won't keep. These will just kind of get, first they'll start to shrink up a little bit and then they'll start to rot. So they're no good for keeping long term. So then these guys can be sliced up and then you don't have as much waste, you don't have as much spoilage. These smaller onions can be sliced up and dehydrated. Just like the peppers, I'm going to store my dried onions inside mason jars, just like this guy right here. These are green onions. This is a whole crap load of green onions. This is probably a year's worth of green onions that I have in here that can be used for green onion flakes or whatever. Once they're dried and cooled, they're going to go in clean, dry mason jars, and they're going to get sealed up, and then we'll have them for the season. I just mix the onions. I've used different combinations of onions. There's really no difference as far as I guess keeping. I mean, they're all dried down good and hard. I will dry onions down to where they're almost brittle, and that's how they keep for me. I like slicing the onions when I prep them for dehydration with something like this. This is an old school vegetable slicer, one that can be adjusted. I got it set there about at the slice that I want. This will hook on the side of the a bowl so it doesn't fall down in on you, and you can kind of tip it up and you can just take your onions when they're cleaned and you can slice them. You get a nice uniform slice. All I do to prep these on a board is just cut the ends off of them and take the skins off and then throw them in a bowl, and then they're ready to slice. Now, just like the peppers, I am going to take some paper towel. I'm going to dab them off to get some of that I guess excess top moisture off before I go ahead and put these in the dehydrators. And again, I'm using the same dehydrators that I used in that other video. I'm using my American Harvest and that old Oster. They're going to dehydrate again for about 24 to 30 hours, and I'm going to rotate the trays as I'm going along. So I'm going to clean up these onions here. I'm going to cut the ends off. I'm going to get everything kind of prepped, and I'm going to start slicing these guys up. I'm going to stop a couple times along the way, just like I did in the other video, show you what they look like kind of in process, and give you guys the information you need so you can dehydrate some onions for yourself. And here are the onions all sliced up. You can get a general idea there about how big the slices are. Got my knife stuck in there for reference. I took the root ends off these. I peeled these guys. This was about, I'm going to say 12 pounds, maybe 13 pounds of onions to start. And once I had everything cleaned, the root ends and stuff cut off, it's probably around 11 pounds, maybe 11 and a half pounds now, because you got a certain amount of waste. I took that out and put it in the garden for compost. I did take some paper towels and I dabbed these off. You can see there a couple little damp spots yet, but for the most part they're dried off. I'm going to take these guys now and I'm going to spread these evenly in my dehydrator trays. If you're a prepper, this is a good time to use your gas mask, because these guys can be pretty pungent. It's another thing when it comes to slicing large quantities of onions like this. It's another good thing if you do it just outside or where there's a fan or something. So anyway, just wanted to mention that to you guys. I'm going to get these guys in the dehydrator trays and we're going to get this process going. And here are the two dehydrators loaded with the onion slices. We're going to turn these on. If I have an adjustment on my dehydrator, I want to start at about 125 to 130 degrees to start, and then as the drying process goes on, I'm going to turn it down. So I'm going to probably let these go at least probably 6 hours on the high setting for this, and just watch it. This one right here is always on high because it's just a straight dehydrator. There's no adjustment, so we'll just keep an eye on it. But just like the peppers, I'm going to rotate the trays. I'll take the top tray, put it on the bottom, move the two middle trays around about every 2 hours to keep the heat and the dryness uniform on these guys right here. Like I said, this is going to take about 24 to 30 hours for these guys to dry down completely, and then we'll let them cool for about 3 to 5 hours, I'd say, and then these will get packed into mason jars so that we can use them. To use these guys, all we're going to do is just reconstitute them with a little water or add them into our dishes dry, just like you would like a commercially available onion flake. So anyway, I'm going to get the lids on here. I'm going to get these guys going. After a few hours, I'll stop and I'll show you what the kind of the middle process or the middle stage of this process looks like. Give you guys a general idea what that looks like too. And here we are the next morning, having some coffee, checking the progress here on our onions. This one is drying off nicely. You can see here there's still some pieces that got moisture in. We're about 14 or so hours into this, so we still got a little bit of time yet. These drier pieces, they're still kind of soft and bendy, where we want all these brittle. But now this guy over here, because the temperature is higher in this dehydrator, you can see here that they're starting to brown the onions, and that's because the higher sugar content in the onions, like them small Vidalias and stuff that I showed you there, you're going to sometimes get a browning on your dehydrated onions if the temperature is a little bit higher. This does not bother anything, doesn't affect anything. It just changes the flavor more like a little bit of a caramelized onion flavor, so that doesn't bother me whatsoever. They're just not all going to be white. Some of them are going to be brown, but that's just because of the sugar content of the onions, which is actually kind of nice because they're not as sharp. But if you see some browning when you're dehydrating your onions and you have an adjustable dehydrator, you can turn the temperature down a little bit to prevent that if you don't want that. But as far as flavor goes, doesn't bother me. I like the little bit of a caramelized onion flavor, so these guys are still going to go all together with the rest of them. But again, there's still some pieces in here that got moisture in, like that right there. So we're going to close these back up, rotate these trays again, and we're going to turn these back on. Let them go for another 10 or so hours. Check them. Like I said, we want a real brittle piece of onion when we're finished. So anyway, I'm going to get these back going here. When these are all done, I'll show you what they look like. These white onions here are at about the 24-hour mark, and they are still not quite dry enough for my liking. The caramelized ones in the hotter Oster dehydrator, I've already taken those in so they can start their cool down. But these guys here, we're going to let these dry a little bit longer yet. They're still a little bendy, which I don't like. I want them to be a little bit more brittle. And then when they are brittle enough for my liking, then we're going to shut these off and let these guys go through the cool down period as well. These are the onions that were in the Oster dehydrator that ran a little bit hotter. You can see they're totally caramelized. These guys have a taste of about the French fried onions that you would put on, let's say, a green bean casserole. So they're actually quite tasty. I'm going to show you guys how I go about jarring these up. You can see here the pieces of onion. And you can see here they just break up. They're brittle. That's the consistency you want the onions to be at. That way you don't have any excess moisture in them. Now what I do is I just take a mason jar. I like taking the onions. I like putting them in a bowl like this. Take this mason jar, kind of set this in the center. Try to do it here with one hand. And then I just fill into the jar without it spinning around on me. I just fill them into the jar, pack them in good and tight, and when they're all filled in, I'm going to set these in the oven for a few minutes on the oven's lowest setting, which is about 170 degrees, to warm the jar and the contents up. And then I'm going to take it out, and I'm going to put a lid on it so it can seal down then. But anyway, I'm going to get these jars filled up, and then I'm going to take you over and show you what they look like while they're sitting in the oven. Well, there are the two jars all closed up. As they cool, they will seal. I'm going to do the exact same thing with the white onions that I did with these guys here. Just give you a real quick idea how I go about dry canning these after the fact. And as you can see there, you know, that's a good 5 pounds of onions in 2 pint jars. So it's a good way to save space when you're putting up onions for the winter. So anyway, I just wanted to share what I know about dehydrating onions, give you guys a little bit of information on that in case you guys want to decide to do that for yourself. But anyway, this is Modern Refugee. I appreciate all my subscribers out there. Hope you guys got a little information and a little entertainment out of this video. And you guys have a good one.